The Jewish nation is at war, and at this critical time, Machon Shilo, led by Rabbi David Bar-Hayim, and the Machon Shilo YouTube channel are excited to broadcast these vital discussions between the rabbi and Jewish hero Jonathan Pollard. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Our pleasure as well. Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom to our ever-increasing audience, some of whom have approached us over the last 10 days or so, demanding yet another discussion with my friend Jonathan Pollard. And I'm pleased to say that we are here again after Jonathan was unavailable and involved in various projects. We are here again to discuss all manner of things. Let us begin with the current state of the fighting in Gaza.
For the future. The tragedy involves the loss, it's seemingly every day, of our soldiers. 1, 2, sometimes 4 soldiers dying, not just in the south, but in the north as well. In Jabalia, for example, where we thought we had cleared this already months ago. So we're mowing the grass, so to speak, again, as it's called. What this suggests is two things. Number one, again, we're using soldiers instead of bombs. And this is because of pressure primarily from the United States and weakness on the part of our own military and political establishments to use whatever weapons are appropriate to save the life of our soldiers. A family that I know has a son, Special Forces, for example, that was told to take his men into a building in Rafah that was known to be rigged with explosives. And when this young man, this officer, asked his commanding officer, why doesn't the Air Force just bomb the building? He was told because the Americans will not allow us to bomb this building. So the men went in and the building came down. And Baruch Hashem, thank God, there was a miracle and none of the men died, although they were all grievously wounded, but they didn't die. So the method...
What happened to this young man?
He was burned pretty severely. But as I said, Baruch Hashem, it was a miracle, absolute miracle. He told me that he expected to die when he said the Shema before going in, because he said he just expected to die. They could see the munitions in there, the booby traps. They could see it, and they were ordered to go in.
And the Biden administration and its army of robotic bureaucrats speak in the name of morality.
I have the feeling, I have no proof, but I have the feeling that there are American officers that are sitting
embedded in Israeli forces.
Determining whether or not the Air Force can actually bomb something. It's just a feeling I have. So this is one aspect of fighting.
The fact that you have such a feeling and that your feeling is not completely irrational or impossible.
It's based on something.
That says enough.
Yeah. So here we have, the Philadelphia corridor, which we have not yet completely occupied or reoccupied. And the Egyptians have piped up now and said, no, they're not going to allow humanitarian aid through unless there's some Palestinian element involved in this. And the time has come, honestly, Rob, to tell the Egyptians to just be quiet. Because now we found all these tunnels which could not have operated without Egyptian government permission. I mean, you can take the corruption so far, but the extent of the tunnel system is too much. I mean, there was too much money being paid to the Egyptians, somebody, for them not to know. They knew this. And this is one reason why they didn't want us to reoccupy the Philadelphia corridor. Number one, we could actually expose their duplicity. And number two, we're cutting off their money.
Can you elaborate about the number of tunnels, the size of these tunnels? What these tunnels make possible, what they facilitate in terms of smuggling?
There are literally hundreds of tunnels that have been discovered between, and these are not small tunnels. These are tunnels, many of which vehicles can drive through.
You're talking about tunnels into the city or town of Rafah from
Egypt,
from the Egyptian side.
Yeah. And so the extent of these tunnel systems and the money that was exchanged between Hamas and Egyptian intermediaries, some official, some unofficial, was so great that the Egyptians did not want us reoccupying the Philadelphia corridor for these two reasons. One, we would expose their duplicity. And two, we're cutting off their money flow. Okay. Whether it's corrupt or official.
Which of course means, by the way, that the Egyptians have obviously, it was obvious to anybody, but here we have a proof positive that they were acting
complicit
in contravention of the so-called peace accords with Israel.
Totally. Now, it just so happens that Sisi's son, the president of Egypt's son, is the head of Egyptian military intelligence.
Oh, that's an interesting coincidence.
Very much so. So you're looking at corruption within the presidential family itself here. So you have that issue. The second issue here, because of what we've discovered, is as follows. We've discovered a lot of material in these tunnels that were originally manufactured in America and given to Egypt. And that material, explosives and bomb, whatever, there was a whole host of things, was later sold. Nothing was given, but I'm sure it was sold to Hamas. Now, I've seen the pictures of the equipment with U.S. manufacturing dates on. We know exactly when they were manufactured and when, obviously, they were given to Egypt as part of the Camp David agreement. Nobody has said anything about this. I have not heard one word in any American media about how did this happen? Who could have done it? What are the Egyptians? Is the U.S. demanding, as they demand from us, an explanation for this? That an American investigatory committee should come over immediately to see how this happened, as they are always doing with us. Not one word. Okay. This is one issue. The other issue has to do with the casualties that we're suffering. There are a lot of people in the military who are saying that, well, you know, the day after, we have to maintain security control over Gaza. Really? Well, if we don't evacuate the pro-Hamas population, the numbers of men we're losing right now will continue. We will be fighting a war of attrition ad infinitum. So if you think right now where we have, you know, massive control over certain areas and we're still losing a lot of men, just think what's going to happen when our numbers are reduced in Gaza and the people come flooding in all over the place. We only know right now, from what I understand, less than 50% of the tunnel system that exists throughout the strip. There are terrorists re-infiltrating to the north. So what is going to happen the day after if we maintain security control over this area? Or you wonder why no other country wants to send a peacekeeping force or security force into that area. They're watching. The Omanis, the Bahrainis, the Emiratis, the Egyptians, They're all watching right now and seeing us lose men every single day almost. You think they're going to send their troops into that cauldron? No, not at all. Which gets back to the fact that there's only one solution to the problem, the ulcer, if you will. You know, they used to talk about the Spanish ulcer during the Napoleonic Wars for Napoleon. Well, this is our Spanish ulcer in Gaza. There's only one way of taking care of that. There's only one way of guaranteeing security for our Gaza envelope, for our southern front, and that is to eliminate, move them out, willingly or not, and annex the region. Now, people have been asking me, why are the Egyptians doing this? And since the war started, I've been saying a very consistent story, which is Egyptian war planning requires Gaza to be occupied by Hamas. Why? The war plan that they have, which is well known, it's explicit, it's public, there's no secret, has the Egyptian army racing across Sinai to our border, our Negev border, with armored divisions and mechanized infantry divisions, for which they built an extensive road network throughout the Sinai and installed pre-positioned military dumps. But this plan, as I've read about it, also requires Hamas to represent a threat to Israel so that we will be kind of put on the horns of a dilemma. Yes, this Egyptian massive army is racing across to get rid of Hamas coming across the border and raiding our border communities. It's a way of directing our deployment of forces. We should be focused on this Egyptian army coming across the Sinai. But because of the threat posed by the Hamas rocket forces on Israeli population centers, we will have to engage. We would have to engage under Egyptian military doctrine in the kind of fight we have right now. And that would eat up 3, 4, 5 divisions of troops that would be better used defending against this Egyptian deployment across Sinai. So apart from the money, the dirty, corrupt money that was involved in Egypt allowing or even facilitating these tunnels to be built, you also have a strategic reason for them to make sure that Hamas, if a war breaks out between Israel and Egypt, could distract us long enough for their army, the Egyptian army, to make it across the Sinai and redeploy, if you will, along our border. So,
in other words, you're saying that Hamas are not only an Iranian proxy, they are in fact also an Egyptian proxy.
Well said. Well said. That's exactly correct. And it takes some...
And yet the Obama, I'm sorry.
No, you were right.
I was right. I know I was right, but
right.
I meant to say Biden. But yes, the Obama stroke Biden administration is doing its utmost to ensure that Hamas survives.
Correct. And they've been doing this ever since the war started. You know, they're saying, oh, you know, we don't want these people in Egypt because, you know, they're all Muslim Brotherhood supporters. And yeah, well, look what they've just done by keeping Hamas alive for who knows how many years. I mean, some of these tunnels I saw require what's called TBMs, tunnel boring machines. They're big hulking machines.
Huge machines.
Huge machines. We didn't know about that.